Discussion?
I'm
It's
good.
very frustrating, and at this point, I don't want to have this conversation every month, so I propose that we just start taking a section of the ordinances and working through them ourselves at each, either a special meeting or a council meeting or something, because we're not going to get any farther on this issue, but
No.
it is something that needs to be done, and so if we have to sit here and do it ourselves, we need to get started.
Y'all shake your heads. Was it
You-
voted
you-
again?
you- you-
Are y'all going to be the one that's doing it?
Yes, because
You're gonna go
remember
home and
when
you're
we
gonna
had our,
start reviewing ordinances? Y'all are shaking your heads. Are y'all reviewing ordinances?
No, you're the one that said you know about the fence. I don't have a problem with the fence, but you would know that. And I don't, she has her.
It's not that it's a problem for me. It was a problem that the citizen thought she was doing the right thing. She looked up in the ordinance and saw 6 foot, so she put up a 6-foot fence, only to be told, oops, over here says that it can only be 3.5 on the front. And of course, so there are problems in those. It's not that I have a problem with them. I'm just trying to help the citizens to not have these problems.
My point is you understand that. You understand her problem. Now, I've been here forever and I've never ran across that problem or an issue, but you have, so you would know what to think about it.
I know, but that's why you have help people, the more eyes you have to see, that's fine, but, you're all up here saying, yeah, let's all go, Jennifer's suggesting that we all go home and take a few of them, you're saying, yeah, well, y'all not gonna go home and read ordinances and,
I will also remind the council that when we had our special meeting, that we all said we didn't really have the time as a council to be spending on all of these, and every one of us here at this dais spoke to that. So now if we have a change of heart, then I guess we have a change of heart, but I find it
discouraging.
very discouraging.
Well, and I did speak to the city manager early on and asked her if she might check into some legal fees that we might need, and I don't think the person she checked with never got back with her, but I did ask that in the very beginning, before the other suggestion was made.
Well, I know, but we're speaking on what's before us right now,
Well,
Councilman Everett, and that is between $200 and $300 an hour, which is Councilman Burson is proposing.
Well, I don't know, no one ever got back with the city manager, so I don't know. But I wouldn't spend a whole lot, but I think we do need legal help on some of them.
I
don't know about all.
agree with that, and she sent an email out, so there's 766 ordinances total, give or take. And of that, 264 are land usage. So out of that 264 is where you're gonna have your drainage and all those kinds of things. So 75% of the ordinances are 3 sentences or less, and those are the ones that we wanted to go through. You get the land usage for the end. As we go through this, you're acting like we're gonna go out here and just pick 10 random people, and we're just going to let them go run away with it. We're going to have the department heads are having input. They're educated. They're running code enforcement or street department, PD, whatever it may be, has their input as well. And again, if it's engineers, when we get to the drainage problem, then it's engineers that we talk to. Maybe we ask our engineer for input when we get to that point.
Well, I've got a book of all of the ordinances up until like 2022. And some of them I do read, and you've been over and you've read them. I do have one issue, but I wouldn't form a committee to solve it. But I understand what you're saying, but like I said, I think somewhere along the line, we're gonna have to have some kind of legal, whether it's our attorney or someone else, their opinion on, is it legal today or is it not?
Well, I think if you're talking about state stuff, I think he does that as we go. And I think, and I may be wrong, city manager could tell us, but I assume if we were to rewrite an ordinance, it would go to the attorney for review. Is that correct?
It would, yes, and that is the purpose of our city attorney. So the legislature does meet every couple of years, and they are coming on their next legislative session, and both TML and the TML attorneys and our city attorney then push those law changes down to the cities to make sure that we are meeting with those. So I'm a part of the TML legislation committee and go up every year after to get the wrap up for them. We did a kickoff just this summer at the TEDC small cities conference. They'll do a big kickoff to tell us what's on the plate of the legislature. So if this is tabled, we can bring it back to the next meeting and discuss it again. But I did reach out, as Ms. Evans mentioned, I did reach out to Civic Plus. Civic Plus does this. Civic Plus is our website provider. But I have not heard back. I've tried 3 times. I've called them and put their help ticket in and sent them emails, and they have not responded. Now, it is a service they say they provide, but they have not responded to me. Again, I think I shared with council, I've done this in a recent community where we did specifically our land usage. We did our development code. We paid an organization over $300,000 over 3 years to bring in a stakeholder group of about 22 people, 25 people, and go through one by one. If this ordinance doesn't pass tonight, staff will continue to go through these one by one. It is extremely time consuming, and we're addressing issues is all we're doing. We're not reading them all to make sure that they're what's best for Gun Barrel.
Well, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Smith, but no one is going to be writing any ordinances. This is just a review committee. And to make suggestions, at that time, if they made a suggestion, it would be reviewed by someone as an expert in that particular field. Is that correct?
So think about this like the Charter Review Commission that is called out in the charter. So you would appoint, and this is exactly how the Charter Review Commission, I don't know if anybody in here was on that, but this is exactly how the Charter Review Commission worked. They look at our charter, they look at other city charters, same with the Bylaw Review Commission for the EDC. They look at our ordinance. They would then look at another city's ordinance, see what might be different, see what recommendations they might have. That group would then settle on what the final language was. It then gets reviewed by our attorney. It then comes to City Council for further discussion. So that is the process. If you have an ordinance review committee, it would look very, very similar to a charter review committee. They would just go one group at a time. We did it with the Charter Review Commission. We put them on a schedule. We said, we're going to do this section at this meeting. Everybody went away, looked at all the, compared different stuff, asked questions. Some of your, to be honest, some of your best suggestions just come from the conversation that group of 12 have. And they decide what finally comes to both the attorney. We did the same with the Charter Review Commission. The attorney reviewed it, and then it came to City Council to go before the public for a vote.
Well, I will also add that I know personally one of the gentlemen that I was going to recommend has done this all his life and is an expert in this area. So I think we were very presumptuous in saying we don't need a committee and we can't get 12 people to really agree, and we don't know that because we don't know the people and we haven't put them together. And I think to not give the citizens an opportunity, and then again to put more burden on our staff that already is small but mighty, I will use that word, and I think is when we have an opportunity to involve citizens, to involve qualified citizens, I would say, and I don't think that anyone on this dais right here would ever suggest anybody that wouldn't be qualified to be a part of anything like this. So I just think it's very, very presumptuous that we made a statement like that, and then we've
I would like to respond to that. I'm talking about the ordinance on the drainage deal. That's all I was regarding. I didn't say there isn't qualified citizens to do that.
Okay, this is 8G. I will repeat it again as a point of order. Consider and take action to adopt resolution number R-2024-011, establishing an ordinance review committee. I don't see anything in there, Councilman Burson, on drainage.
But it is in our ordinances, correct?
I'm reading the resolution, which is what we're talking about right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Further discussion? Moving on. 8H, consider and take action to make appointments to the Ordinance Review Committee. Obviously, we're probably going to move on from that.
Mayor, you will need a motion and a vote to table this item as well.
I think we did get one.
We already did that.
Oh, to table the second thing as well? Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I will ask for a motion.
Y'all have to make the motion to table it. I'm not going to make a motion to table it.
Yeah, we've already voted on it.
You voted on it to take, to table the resolution.
To do 8H.
Okay, I make a motion to table 8H, which is consider and take action to appoint appointees to the Ordinance Review Board.
I have a motion and a second. Vote for my left, please.
Burns, no.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, no.
Burson, yes.
Boss, yes.
Passes. Moving on. 8I, consider and take action to make appointments to the Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors. Speaking on this agenda item will be our city manager again, Dr. Smith.
Council, in the special meeting, right before this meeting, council met to discuss the candidates. What I will read for you is the list that the council members present. There were 3 council members and the mayor present. I will read to you the nominations from those. Mayor, you will then need a motion. You will need to discuss and then take your vote, right? So you have an opportunity to discuss it since we have some members that are
On
here
each individual.
on each individual item. So we'll start with BOA. I believe that's the first one.
It's not on there.
Wait a minute. Economic Development Corp. The Economic Development Corp is the consensus at the meeting from council, and this was Roy Key, Linda Rankin, Lisa Matthews, and Sue Alexander.
So what do you need now?
Are we making a motion on each individual?
You can make one motion to name those 4 people.
Okay, I do not have those 4 people in front of me, so I will just say, do we have a motion for those 4 appointees?
Well, I make a motion to appoint Roy Key, Linda Rankin, Lisa Matthews, Sue Alexander to the Economic Development Corporation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Jacobs, second.
I have a second. Vote for my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Burson, yes.
Boss, yes.
Passes. Congratulations to those individuals. 8J, consider and take action to make appointments to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, on this agenda item, our city manager, Dr. Smith.
For the Planning and Zoning, I did just realize BOA is not on your agenda, so that will be back at your October meeting for appointments. I'm not sure how Janet and I missed that one, but we only ended up with EDC, Planning and Zoning and Parks. So the consensus from council at the special meeting at the beginning of the night was there are 4 vacancies on Planning and Zoning, to appoint Ava Towner and Scott Coleman, and come back, repost that position, and take applications again for the Planning and Zoning Commission. That would leave 2 vacancies. You would still have a quorum at your meetings. So Ava Towner and Scott Coleman.
I move that we nominate Ava Towner and Scott Coleman.
I could not understand what she's saying. Could you
Okay.
repeat who are the appointees?
Can you repeat that, city manager, for
Who and what?
Mr.
I can.
Foster?
Planning and Zoning, Mr. Foster has 4 openings. The consensus among the members that were at the early meeting were to appoint Ava Towner and Scott Coleman and leave the other 2 positions vacant and repost for applications.
I would nominate Rob Ray to that, Planning and Zoning.
I disagree. We have a motion on the table, correct?
Yes.
I will second that motion.
Vote for my left, please.
Burns, yes.
2 members.
Jennifer?
For Ava Towner and Scott Coleman.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Burson, no.
What is the motion?
Ms. Foster, so what we have on the agenda right now is we are appointing 2 people and then leaving, and those 2 people are Ava Towner and Scott Coleman. We are leaving 2 vacancies on that board. We still have a quorum on that board, but we are leaving those 2 vacancies to be able to come back to. Now, we have votes on the dais of a yes, a yes, a yes, and a no.
Well, my only question is, we had a third candidate there that has apparently been omitted for whatever reason. Why would we be doing that and ask for 2 more if we don't consider all the people that have applied?
They've been considered.
We have,
They've been considered.
and this is our decision, so.
Yep. So your vote, please, Mr. Foster.
So am I to understand that Rob Ray is no longer on this list?
He is not part of the nominate, or the motion.
No. Do you need me to repeat the motion to you again? I would be happy to. Is that a yes or a no? Councilman Foster? Yes or no, please, sir?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
I'd say no on the motion if he's being omitted.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on, 8K, consider and take action to make appointments to the Park Board. Our city manager, again, Dr. Smith, will speak to this agenda item.
So we had 3 openings, and we had 2 reapplications, if that's the right word, and 1 new application. This would be Foster Brady, Shelley Coleman, and Renetta Burson.
I move that we seat Foster Brady, Shelley Coleman, and Renetta Burson.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Vote from my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Recuse.
Foster, yes.
Motion passes.
Council, I apologize about BOA. We will have that on the October meeting.
All right, moving forward now. Number 9, planning and zoning. I will now open a public hearing on a request from Lily DeGarmo to grant a special use permit to perform permanent cosmetics at ETX Inject Cosmetics and Wellness, physically located at 1829 West Main Street, Gun Barrel City, Texas. Is someone here to speak to that? Can you come to the podium, please? Thank you.
This is the public hearing. I think you want to speak under the agenda item, unless you have a public, that's the applicant, Mayor, so she will
Okay.
speak under the agenda item.
Anybody? Questions? Open? It's closed. Now, at 9B, consider and take action to adopt ordinance number 0-2024-026, granting a change in zoning to General Business District B2, subject to a special use permit to perform permanent makeup, cosmetic tattooing at ETX Inject Cosmetics and Wellness, physically located at 1829 West Main Street, Gun Barrel City, Texas. Speaking on this agenda item will be our city planner, Brooke Atkinson.
Mayor, this is our new city planner, Brittany Lewis. Her first presentation to council.
I apologize.
She has an amazing trainer in Brooke Atkinson, but Brittany stepped up and wanted to do this presentation, and so she and Brooke put it together, and Brittany is now going to do her first presentation to council.
Good evening. So I'm going to go over the timeline of events. We received the application on August the 27th. The public hearing notice was sent to the paper on August the 30th. The letters were mailed to the property owners within 200 feet of the property on August the 30th. Public hearing notice was published in the paper for the Planning and Zoning and City Council meeting on September the 8th, 2024, which is at least 15 days prior to the City Council meeting. On September the 9th, Planning and Zoning made the recommendation to grant a special use permit to perform permanent cosmetics at ETX Inject Cosmetics and Wellness by Lily DeGarmo. And tonight is the regular city council meeting. I sent out 11 letters and received 0 letters in response. This will be located at 1829 West Main Street. Here's the view of the location from the street. ETX Inject Cosmetic and Wellness operates without offering permanent cosmetics. This special use permit is to add the service to the current existing business. As indicated on the submitted application, the operational hours are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday 9 to 12 p.m. In ordinance number 156.041, General Business District B2, tattoo studios are permitted by a special use permit. In Texas, permanent cosmetic tattooing is regulated by the Department of State Health Services and requires a tattooing license to perform. Since this requires a tattoo license to perform permanent cosmetic procedures, we consider this a tattoo studio which is granted with a special use permit by the City Council and recommended by Planning and Zoning. Under Ordinance 156.094, tattoo studios, in addition to complying with the regular requirements applicable to such establishments within the B2 district, 2 certain specific regulations must also adhere to. A tattoo studios are prohibited from operating within 1,000 feet of any church, public, or private school or residential zoning district. This distance is measured in a straight line from the nearest part of the tattoo studio's premises to the nearest property line of a church or school, or the nearest boundary of a residential district or lot. However, you, the City Council, has the authority to reduce or waive the separation distance if it is determined that the tattoo studio's operation would not pose a threat to public health, safety, welfare, or if it would not be offensive to the neighborhood. B, tattoo studios must consistently maintain compliance with all Texas state laws concerning such establishments. This particular applicant's proposed permanent cosmetics is situated within close proximity of 2 churches that are highlighted in yellow and 3 residential subdivisions that are highlighted in blue. The City Council is currently viewing a 1,000-foot boundary map from this location as mandated by Section 156.094 regulations, which required adherence to specific distance requirements from such establishments in zoning districts. The applicant's location is approximately within 730 feet from the Beacon Church of Christ that's located at 146 Harbor Point Road. The applicant's location is approximately within 950 feet from Life Sanctuary located at 1623 West Main Street, and approximately 400 feet from any existing resident's front door in a residential area. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant is also here as well. Thank you.
I did a terrible job of introducing you, but that was an incredible presentation. You did a great job. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Questions for staff, please?
I have a question. So we're not just granting a special use permit, we're also granting a change in zoning, is that correct?
That is not correct, no.
That's what it says.
That is located in the B2 business area.
That's what the paperwork says.
Council? Nope, you? Yes. Yes. I think because the zoning calls out specifically the tattoo is why it's worded that way. I asked that question the first time this happened, and I was like, Janet, and she said, no, that's how the language is written, because it is a special use permit, so it is, for all practical purposes, the way the city attorney explained it, an exception to the current zoning, right? So the zoning says you can have this with a special use permit. It's a great question, Ms. Burns, but that's why it's worded the way it's worded. that is still zoned B2. This is just, it's not a variance, it's an exception to B2 zoning with a special use permit.
Gotcha.
And if the owner of it, the property, or the owner of the business changes, it doesn't stay, it
Right.
goes away. So a zoning change would be permanent. This, if the owner changes or anything, it would go away.
You might remember that with our last tattoo studio. The owner applied for it, then
Right.
she got out of the business, and we had to redo that same thing. But
I need the special use permit stays with the person who applied for it, and if
Yes.
they are no longer
Yeah.
there, it goes away.
Yeah.
But the verbiage here, I was just
Yeah.
asking.
nope, it's a great question.
Any further questions for Ms. Lewis or the applicant?
The applicant is here and happy to explain if you guys have any questions.
If none, I will ask for a motion.
I move that we adopt ordinance number O-2024-026, granting a change in zoning to General Business District B2, subject to a special use permit to perform permanent makeup, cosmetic tattooing at ETX Inject Cosmetics and Wellness, physically located at 1829 West Main Street, Gunboro City, Texas.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Jacobs, second.
I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. A vote for my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes?
Jacobs, yes.
Person, yes.
Lost, yes.
Motion passes. Moving to Economic Development, 10A. Consider and take action to approve an engagement letter with Donald Allman for auditing services for the EDC for fiscal year 2024-25. I have someone as my, Dr. Smith will now be our
I'm gonna put on a
other
different hat.
hat on, and she will be the EDC director.
So this is just our annual agreement for our audit. We sign them annually over at the EDC. So Mr. Allman provided his engagement letter, and the EDC did approve this fully at their meeting.
Is this the same auditing services they had last year?
It is the same auditing services this year. If you will remember in their bylaws, they did bump up the rule by when the audit has to be presented to the EDC board, and he is aware of that and has agreed to make sure, I believe it's either February or March. In the bylaws, there is a caveat of when those financials have to be, year-end financial, audited financials have to be approved, and he has agreed to that as well. I believe it is March, but I would have to verify that. It's either February or March. March? The president is nodding his head, it is March.
Questions for staff? Discussion? If none, I will ask for a motion.
I move that we approve an engagement letter with Donald Allman for auditing services for the EDC for fiscal year 24-25.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Take a vote from my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes?
Jacobs, yes.
Person, yes.
Lost, yes.
Motion passes. 10B, consider and take action to adopt resolution number R-2024-009, approving the Gun Barrel City EDC Large Business Incentive Policy. I will read into the record the resolution. Resolution number R-2024-009, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Gun Barrel City, Texas, approving the Gun Barrel City EDC Large Business Incentive Policy and providing for an immediate effective date. Speaking on this will be our EDC Director, Dr. Smith.
So following the council work session, so a little history about this. As most of you know, we've talked through this. We talked through it at our work session, but I want to be clear considering someone made comments tonight regarding this item. The EDC appointed, if memory serves me right, a loan and grant subcommittee last January, January of 2024, to really look at those. We had these programs on hold. There were a number of issues. We still have a lot of outstanding issue with the current loans we have out. Our grants have cleaned themselves up. And so the Loan and Grant Committee started having subcommittee meetings. And we started with a lot of the items that Mr. McCullough mentioned today, you know, setting prime, setting what the interest rate was, setting what requirements there were. In May or June, and I had this conversation at the work session, in May or June, I attended the EDC mid-year conference and visited with a number of different highly qualified, highly successful economic development directors around the state of Texas. And I came back with, to the subcommittee, which consisted of, I've lost words today, consisted of Mr. Ligon and Mr. McCullough, a new option that got rid of the boxes that we had in place, which was here's a loan program and here's the guidelines by which it falls and here's a incentive, here's a grant, and this is what you have to do if you want a grant. And we presented, I presented these policies to that subcommittee. It isn't a program, it is a policy which sets an umbrella for programs to exist under. Mr. Ligon and Mr. McCullough then took those, pretty much what you see in front of you tonight, to the EDC in a special work session. They introduced those, we walked through them. They heard much the same spill from me that I presented you at your last special meeting, which is our goal and the EDC's goal with this was to create an umbrella under which we could build programs that could be different for each applicant. I sent an email to council today and clarified that while it doesn't set this is what the percentage rate would be, what this policy does is allow someone to apply for a large business incentive, and it provides a lot of options. Some we could never do. Some we're not going to have the ability to do with the amount of money that the EDC gets. But it provides the umbrella under which two candidates could both apply for large business incentives, apply, say, for a $100,000 loan. The small business incentive is very specific. They are reimbursement grants. Two businesses could then apply, and the board could meet with them. That one they meet monthly. The small business, they meet quarterly because those are reimbursement grants. And then be allowed to come up with a program that works for that business. And so the example that I have used both with the committee and with the EDC is, if I have huge financial backing and I come to the table and I can show you that I'm an experienced business owner, I have all of these things in place, I have this financial backing in place, maybe I get a lower interest rate than someone that comes to the table as a brand new business that doesn't have a business plan, that I have a lot of hopes and dreams, but I don't have a lot of success in that area. This policy then allows the EDC and then council to make a decision based on a lot of those factors instead of locking in, it has to be 2% for everybody, which is what our current program is. Right now we have programs. And so it allows, there is a lot of criteria under which there are a lot of variations in there. And we may not be able to do all, but we may be able to partner with the county in some things. That's not uncommon in economic development for you to partner with the county. And, you know, maybe there's incentives from the county and that we can work that out. But just to clarify, the small business incentive would be reviewed quarterly. That is a grant reimbursement program where you would apply for a certain amount to do exterior incentive, interior incentive, work on your marketing, work on your workforce development, or in public disasters. So at the council special work session, two different things came up. The first was, in the event of a public disaster, could we wait 90 days, right? Could we wait a full quarter? And so I made that change today. It did not make it into, I had those conversations again with council in my one-on-ones last week, and heard some of the concerns, and we talked through some of those concerns, so I made that amendment over the weekend, that in the event of a publicly declared disaster, and that means that we have it's not that my building burns down, but that is geared specifically at a public disaster, tornado, a flood, something where, you know, recently the county declared a disaster when the storm came through, that the board may meet as needed. So that doesn't bump that to a quarter. So if it is a public disaster, the board can call their incentive task force to the table and say, we have these businesses, we need to see how we can help them get back open. I've lived through a tornado. Most of you know that. My city got hit, and it will shut down an entire city, and Gun Barrel doesn't need that to happen, so we want to be able to act quick. The second thing in the small business that was a question is there was a sentence that said the incentive program excludes national franchises. I truly believe they were excluded because this is the small business, not the large business. But at the request of council following that meeting, I simply deleted that sentence, which doesn't, if a Target wanted to come in, the reasoning is if a Target wanted to come in and they wanted a $25,000 sign grant, we're going to do what we can do to get Target here, right? And so I don't want that to be a caveat, if that's all they asked for, that we put ourselves in that situation. So there's 2 special notes on here just to clarify some things. The small business incentive is reviewed quarterly. The large business incentive is reviewed once a month. That allows us to act very quickly. I did send kind of a calendar to council today to walk through that. How quick could you get money if you wanted money? And it's not that quick. It would take a while if they submitted a perfect, but there's also a state law that says that we have to wait 60 days after the first public notice. I did talk to a partner that does this in another city, and she let me know that the reason they do that is because they want the public to have time to challenge that before you fund it, right? And I think you guys have experienced that. So that's the reason for the 60 days. But again, I think the most important thing I can tell council is this is a policy, not a program, right? And a policy then sets the bar that you develop programs under. And it takes us out of a box that my only option is to either get a $25,000 reimbursement where you're going to pay me half, or a $100,000 loan, which is what our current programs allow you to do. That is the only 2 options. Anything other than that would have to happen outside that program, and these policies just set the standard. And so I want to be clear, because I feel like tonight in public comment there was some information given. These are the policies that our subcommittee took to the EDC. These are the policies that the EDC reviewed in their workshop and then approved in their meeting. Nothing has been changed by staff or any of the EDC members since these were presented to the EDC in their special workshop or they were approved at the EDC meeting. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I know we talked about this at length, so.
I just got a couple questions. I was on the EDC loan from the start, the Loan and Grant Committee, all the way up to time of being on council. And in these committees, we talked about setting something above prime. We tried to come up with a number. We tried to figure out some way to get some collateral, to have some performance bonds, collateral, some way to secure the loans, insurance. If we're doing a home-owned business, we need to be a rider on that insurance. So if that house burns down, we can get some of our money back, some of the taxpayers' money back, while still helping these businesses grow here in Gun Barrel. But after reviewing, I just didn't understand, but after reviewing these documents, you're telling me that these are a policy, but all the stuff that we worked on, where is that applied? Where are we reassured? Because there's a lot of loans out there right now that are on personal guarantees. We have nothing other than a personal guarantee to.
So that is something that the policy sets the umbrella for, and then the EDC would work with each individual applicant to decide how they would request that information based on the application, right? So there's a lot of information. There's almost a page-and-a-half list of things that the applicant has to provide. If they're just looking for a $100,000 loan, it opens the door for the EDC to look at their financials and to have that discussion and then set what the interest rate is. It does not lock in, it's going to be 2% over prime, or it's going to be 2%.
But we're still loaning money at 2%, correct? Is that
We are not currently, no, that is a program.
But that is the policy as it stands right now, right?
That is your loan program right now, is that, and we have not taken any loan or grant applications.
I know, but that's why we were going through this to reestablish this. This document has nothing of that.
It doesn't, because it's the policy that then allows the EDC to meet with the business to decide what the situation is for that specific business. So, you know, if the EDC wanted to set it at prime plus 2, they could. If they wanted to give a loan at 2%, they could make that recommendation to council. And I think the most important thing to understand is any recommendation prior to a performance agreement being issued is going to come to council for discussion. Jay, I would argue that your EDC doesn't want unsecured loans either, because that's what we spend 90% of our time doing, is trying to collect them. And so, but this doesn't outline that specifically. It just says you have some freedom in here based on the finances of the business, the history of the business, to set that at whatever is best for the EDC. And the EDC would review that application. The EDC would then make a recommendation to council through a performance agreement. The performance agreement specifically would call out each of those items, and then council would approve that performance agreement as well.
Well, I just know that in the past, I'm not trying to go back to the past. I know some people don't like that, but I'm just going from where we've been. I don't see how we can borrow money at a higher rate than we're lending it.
I don't disagree with
And that,
you.
but when we've done that, and that's why I'm trying to get some policies that make sense to me.
Yep.
Well, but I think what she's trying to say is that each individual situation is going to be different, okay? And this gives the EDC some flexibility and gives us a little flexibility to work with people, okay, and to set some of those. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. That's just not going to happen.
Well, so you're saying that depending on the board that we have seated over there, they can do anything. There's no requirement that they have to get a bond. There's no requirement that they have to get any kind of protection for the taxpayers' money under this policy?
I'm saying that the board that is appointed by council has the flexibility to set the guidelines for each performance agreement, and then council approves that performance agreement. So ultimately, if it comes to council and council isn't happy with the guidelines that they set forth, then you can reject it and send it back to them for further discussion. So yes, I'm saying that the 7 people appointed by city council to sit on that EDC board have the flexibility to make a recommendation to council for each business given the circumstances that business is in.
Mr. Mayor, a comment?
Go right ahead.
Looking at the document, it is very general. I think what is missing here is if a company comes in or an organization wanting to work with EDC, they do need some basic guidelines of where we stand regarding interest rate, payback, and so forth, and it's not there. If that's not there, they come in and this has to be reworked every time through the committee. I think we need some baseline information that the board should have provided in this document that will set the standards of what an organization requesting funds would expect us to be looking at. If we don't do that, I'm afraid that what we'll do is the review committee will change over time, and we'll have different targets there to work from as to how they might view it. I think that's a mistake. I think to be more business-like, we do need to set some target guidelines there that anybody coming in, that's what they would expect to work within those parameters. Thank you.
Well, I just think that we seat 7 people on that EDC board to make these decisions, and understand that we don't always make, I don't think anyone intentionally makes bad decisions. But if I was to walk in a bank today and say, hey, how much are you gonna loan me on this, on $100,000? Do you think he's gonna have an answer for me? Is he gonna have an interest rate right then and there? No. Because why? He has to get in more information about me. What's my credit score look like? What's my financials look like? What am I going to do with this money? I mean, a whole bunch of more information, and I think that's what we're giving the EDC the right to do as well, so that they can go through and look at what that person has. And if this collateral is what the EDC feels like that needs to happen, then I'm sure the EDC is going to say, I want hazard insurance on that building if it's for a building. But to set a standard when everyone comes in with a different want or need is very hard to do that. Some things maybe, I mean, I know this isn't what we're supposed to do, but I know we've given loans in the past that paid off another loan. Well, what do you expect them to insure at that point? I mean, I think we just have to put our trust in the EDC, the people that we have placed in those positions, and again, that's going to come to council for approval at the end.
Are we on the large incentive policy or the small?
We are on the large.
That's what I thought.
And I discussed them as a whole, so we wouldn't separate them out. I'm happy to answer questions about the large. That's the agenda topic we're on. But, I mean, I think Councilman Burns is exactly right. That is, you are appointing members to that board. We could set procedure if council has a desire to do that. This is the policy, and we could put together a procedure manual, if you will. I would argue that you're putting more steps in process when you want to have that flexibility, because you might, you made special concessions when Elder came in. We may have made special concessions when Lowe's came in. This gives us the ability, and not just the EDC and council. I am employed by both. Gives both boards the ability to have conversations. If council wanted to appoint a special committee of not a quorum to review these before they came to council, council could do that. These policies just build the umbrella and don't lock us into every single person, because here's what I'm going to tell you. You have a loan and grant program now. This is your city manager talking. You have a loan and grant program now, but we've gone around it a number of times and partnered with folks. And we've got a lot of people with creative that are interested in applying that have creative problems. And our solution to solve creative problems is we have to have a creative tool in place. And if your EDC board is so far off from council's wishes that they can't make a good recommendation to council, that is another issue.
Yes, that's right.
Well,
Go right ahead.
I would just like to, somewhere in some of our documents in this building, there should be a document that says we need to require a bond or some kind of security on some of these loans we make. And there's not that I know of. There may be somewhere, but
You just want it to be a requirement that no matter what it is and I'm not saying that they shouldn't, because I know that we have had some troubles in the past or whatever, but.
I know we've done that in the past. I mean,
We have.
we recently released one that was secured by a life insurance policy.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I'm happy to amend the verbiage for the resolution so that we can add wording like that in.
But I think that's what the ordinance, and correct me, please, EDC Director, if I'm wrong, it all follows under that umbrella. Am I misunderstanding?
It does not. It
So
allows.
if it's under that umbrella, I think, again, all of us up here working to dispel the image that we have of how hard we are to work with and how hard we are to deal with, we can all of those things that Councilman Foster said, we can deal with those on an as needed basis, and each individual will come under that type of scrutiny. I think, again, just to put a bunch of blanket things down is limiting, and I personally like the way it's written.
Tell you that I had a lot of conversations at the mid-year EDC conference with directors from around the state. They're recognized at doing this, right? This is what they do. I'm a great city manager. I'm an okay EDC director. We've made a lot. We have jumped a lot of hurdles since October when I started, and that EDC has come a very long way. And that's not just me. That is with the help of the board. And Stephen Barnett is a rock star. But you have to remember that the more lockdown you make the program, the more you are warning people from participating. So, we can say, hey, we're not going to give you a loan without a performance bond. And I'm not even sure that's the right word. I'm not sure you're getting a performance bond, but with some kind of collateral, right? That's not what a performance bond does. But we're gonna require collateral. But if Chick-fil-A walked in today and said, we want to open a Chick-fil-A here, but we need $100,000, and Chick-fil-A is Chick-fil-A, right? Is that the same as I want to open a snow cone shop and I need $100,000. And I think that's what these policies allow you to do is meet each person where they are to attempt to, and that's how creative EDCs are getting to have to get things. And once you got the policies in place, then you have the ability to say, you know, hey, we want collateral in this form or fashion. And performance bond isn't the right word because that's not collateral, but that's, you know, whatever that collateral looks like, whatever percentage that loan is, and so.
And some of the things I think when we're talking about collateral isn't going to satisfy, I think, the concern. I'm assuming your concern is like with people not paying their bills, right? So if you put them on a mortgage, you build a building or add on to a building and say, I want your insurance to be listed on your insurance. Well, if they don't pay their bill, that ain't going to change anything on the insurance. You're still not going to collect any money from that unless there's damage to that building. You know, so again, if you're just trying to ensure payment from a person, no one can do that. If that's the case, banks would never go bankrupt and they'd never have any issues.
Well-
You just got to make good decisions and make good loans, and then you can't put all, the EDC presents it, and then the city council approves it.
I understand, but what the deal on the insurance you just said, I just said if we loan money to somebody and we're using basically the building as collateral, we ought to be a co-signer on that insurance, because if that building burns, we need to be able to get some of that money because that's part of our collateral. That's all I'm asking.
No,
for.
I agree with that. I was just saying if your concern was them not paying is what I was saying. If that's not your concern, I understand being added to the person's policies because it's kind of like you're being a mortgage, right? You're doing a mortgage. But I think at the time, depending on the amount of money that's being loaned to that certain individual is, again, where we leave that to the EDC to make that decision.
Mayor.
And again, we can recommend, it can come to us, you can look at it, and you can say, you know, we're getting $100,000 to build a building right here. That's a lot of money in a building, we want to be on the insurance. It doesn't cost them anything to put them as on mortgagee on the insurance, you know. But that's something I think that the EDC can request, and if we wanted that, ask them to do so.
So basically, these policies that are written on the big and the small, just leaves everything to the board that we have appointed to make decisions, you would hope, good.
To make recommendations to the city council, yes.
Which
Mayor-
comes to us.
Mayor, because this is an EDC topic, the EDC president is here and he would like to speak.
I think one of the things that I'd like to point out is what we looked at is what we have in place does not preclude the things that you're talking about. I have no arguments with that at all. We've got to have something in place to make the program have some teeth. I agree with that. But what we've got to do is have an overall program. Right now, we've got a cookie cutter out there, and if it don't fit the cookie cutter, it don't work. Now we've got something where we can work with a Chick-fil-A versus a Longhorn Steakhouse versus a mom and pop's tattoo parlor, whatever. And I'm not trying to disparage any business, but I'm saying the way it works right now, we can come up and put in place, get your approval to allow us to put in place requirements to a performance bond or put up a collateral for us that is something that we can absolutely exercise on, something that's not going to cost us so much to do it, but some way that we have in the bag a guarantee that what they say they're going to do is going to happen. If it doesn't, then our money comes back. And this gives us that latitude. This gives us the umbrella with which to get under and to work with. If anybody has any questions, I'm just telling you from the standpoint of how we looked at it. We were excited about it from the standpoint that it gave us a penumbra under which to work. And it is something that is a lot more, not touchy-feely, but something that's out there that we know that we can't go any further than this, but we know that we at least can go that far. When you're bringing in a business, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, if you're bringing in a business, there are certain businesses you want, and there's certain businesses you tolerate, and there's certain businesses you really don't want them. I mean, it would be cannibalizing the existing business, or it would be dragging down the current status quo. We want to have the ability to deal with these folks. We want to be able to go out and recruit your Chick-fil-A's, your Longhorn Steakhouses, Texas Roadhouse, something like that. And if that involves building them a sign, build them a sign. If that involves giving them a stipend over 10 years, like the agreement we had with Lowe's, well, we'll bring that to the forefront. But that's nothing that we bring to the table is ever going to be put into place without you guys looking at it and putting your stamp of approval on it.
Absolutely. I would also caution, I just want to be on the record as having said this, when it gets to this council, I want us, again, always doing and putting our best foot forward what's best for the city and not using this as a weapon in any way against any developer. I just want to be on record to say that.
Absolutely. The way we look at this is we are here as fiduciaries. Our job is to put the city before our wants. And that's what we have to do. That's what you have to do. And that's just fiduciary law. And I agree with that, and I applaud that. I applaud that.
I just want to be on record. Any other discussion or questions for our EDC chair?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, sir.
I would like to make one comment. I think that what we're really trying to do here, or should be doing, is, yes, it's best for the city, but we also need to have in place to the extent that we can, protection for the EDC board itself in terms of how they make decisions and that they can make the best decisions for the city. And I think this is what maybe there's interesting discussion here that we're varying from, is that if we have something in place that the EDC board can go by and say, look, we've looked at this, yes, there's certain parameters here, but these are certain ones that we're going to have to look at very carefully. You need to know about it coming in. I think this gives a great deal of protection for the board itself, so that in the future, it minimizes the problem of possibly approving a project that might not have been approved otherwise. So I think it's good that we have some safeguards there in place for the board, and those I think need to be articulated.
But I think we're being redundant in saying that because we have the umbrella, and within that umbrella, all of those things that you just stated can be taken care of through the EDC with their recommendations and then brought before us. And if there's a situation there, Councilman Foster, that you're not comfortable with, then by all means, we chose that board. You can choose to make a correction on that. Again, I think we need to be a lot more inviting to a lot more businesses in a very, very competitive climate right now in tough economic times. And I think putting constraints like that is just not prudent.
Well, I think that what we're doing here is not putting any constraints on there, but to make sure that when it does come to us, to the extent possible, we have the best information that we can have on various aspects of the project. So I don't think it's, personally, I don't think it's an overlap, but some statement needs to be made about what the EDC is going to expect in general from a project in terms of what we would expect. Just to go in and say, have the board react to whatever a developer or anyone comes in with, I think would be a mistake, and put really the board itself and their decision-making at risk. Thank you.
But Ken, the thing that's so exciting about this is the fact that it gives us a framework within to create a living document, like the Constitution of the United States of America. That's a living document. It's not static. It's something that can grow or contract as it needs to. And that's what's the most exciting about this particular program, is it gives us that latitude to create, for lack of a better word, a living document, a living, breathing document with which we can grow this city and bring in people. And that's my only point. That was what the excitement was for me.
I think one thing that you want to take into consideration is when you start putting constraints, then you do you could potentially shut out a business, right?
Yes.
If it is a life insurance, well, not everybody that's going to be applicable, right? And if you put, some type of collateral, that won't be applicable for every single person. All this policy does is allow the EDC at the direction of council. Again, council sets the direction for the board. So if you want standing rules in place for loans and grants, and they have to do 2+, I will tell you that you're handcuffing yourself as the expert that does this. But you could do that in a standing rules. But these are the policies under which each of those, and they take their direction from council. So council should make sure that the EDC board knows what direction they want. If it's collateral, if it's whatever that case is. And I will tell you all, I've worked with both you all and the EDC board since last October, almost a full month, almost a full year. And I truly believe that your current appointees on your EDC board want exactly what council wants. They don't want to repeat the situation we're in now. There's no desire to have unsecured loans and, no more information than, hey, give us $300,000. And that's something that board is also working on, is getting all of those performance agreements up to date and making sure that we have checked the metrics that were supposed to be done over the last 10 years. So I would argue that is definitely they're not trying to skim. They're not trying to say, hey, we're not going to do this, but these policies just give that umbrella for them to operate under.
Again, that's the situation we're in now, is that cookie cutter that it doesn't fit in. And we're trying to get away from that, so trying to put it back in there, then what's the point? We're supposed to give the EDC the freedom and the creativity to do what they can within reason. And I think I trust the board that we have. And then again, it comes back to us, and I trust this board as well.
I didn't realize it was in a cookie cutter situation, and I'm still, I just want some type of security for our money that we're giving away to people. And I know people have hard times and things like that, but we've lost on so many projects because there's nothing standard that says we need this kind of collateral, or what can we get from this or that, and to leave it up to the board changes all the time, the council changes all the time, and I just think what you were talking about, standing rules, is what we really need.
But a point of order is we're just going, we're beating this horse to death, and we're about to be done with this discussion. I will finish this with it. Again, you can't have anything static. You can't have a set. This is why we're doing this, so we can appeal to more quality businesses here in Gun Barrel to build up, our sales tax revenue. When we beat this thing to death when we went through budget, so now instead of trying to really add to this and really give our chances of increasing our chances, all these same people that wanted to holler about the budget, we don't have enough money, we don't have this, we're going to cut staff, we're going to do all these things. Well, now all of a sudden you want to cut the amount of businesses that are going to come here, and I'm not going to sit here anymore and listen to any of this. I'm now going to call for a motion on 10B to consider and take action to adopt resolution number R-2024-009, approving the Gun Barrel City EDC large business incentive policy. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution number R-2024-009, approving the Gun Barrel City EDC large business incentive policy.
Jacobs, second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll ask for a vote from my left, please.
Burns, yes?
Evans, no?
Jacobs, yes.
Person, no.
He's muted. You mute yourself, Ken. You're muted.
Foster, no.
And I'm just going to point out what a disgrace I think it is that in one agenda item, you make comments about the drainage issues preventing businesses from coming to our community, and now when we are discussing how much easier we can make it on businesses to come to our community, you contradict yourselves with every other agenda item, and it is so frustrating.
I will also ask the next time that we do one of these, if Councilman Foss, you could please not eat during the meeting. That would also help me be a little bit more professional. Now we'll move to 10C. Consider and take action to adopt a resolution number R-2024-010 approving the Gun Barrel City EDC Small Business Incentive Policy. I think we've beat this thing to death, so we're either going to ask for a motion.
I have a question. So since
Okay.
this is a grant program, so this is a give back of money once they have spent money. So there's not a need for collateral in this point because it is given money. Is
It's-
there any?
It's a reimbursement.
Okay.
So they apply for, this is what April meant, but they apply for a reimbursement grant up to a certain amount. They must provide receipts, and it outlines the guidelines of how many beds they have to have, and then using Gun Barrel City preferred vendors. And then we reimburse, very similar to Trouts. Some of you may remember the Trouts and what's required in order to do that. But this is, the small is specific to a reimbursement grant incentive for the 4 areas talked about earlier.
All right, so I just didn't know if there was any issues that y'all have with this one. Okay, so then I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number R-2024-010, approving the Gun Barrel City EDC Small Business Incentive Policy.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Jacobs seconds.
Vote for my left, please.
Burns, yes?
Evans, yes?
Jacobs, yes.
Person, yes.
Boss, yes.
Motion passes. I move that this meeting is now adjourned.
You want this?
You can have it if you want it. Janet's got one. Yeah, let me have it.